Obviously, you're the governor, and this is CU Boulder, and we're talking about ethics. So I hate to bring up the elephant in the room, but let's talk about Ward Churchill for a minute. Obviously, there's a lot of things about truth and what's right and what's wrong as far as with Ward Churchill and your predecessor, former Governor Bill Owens. So how do you think that all plays in with, like you said, it's like kind of like a bearing, like true north. The truth is like, it's kind of what you set yourself by. And with that being obviously such a high profile, I mean, it's in the newspaper every single day, and it relates so much to this topic and to this campus and to your office. How do you think that all plays into the situation?
That's not related to my office.
Well,
it relates to Bill Owens' office.
Right, that's what okay, maybe the office of the governor. Right.
He was in the middle of it, and he got involved in it. I know as much about the Ward Churchill case as you do.
Right.
Because I read media accounts and paid careful attention to it. I can tell you that the media is not always accurate. That the media does not always portray the full story, and I especially know that about court cases, because I spent my life prosecuting cases in a courtroom and know that the media doesn't give full-blown details. I know that we trust juries in this country to do the right thing, and I have experiences where I lost cases that I thought I should have won, and so I know that sometimes juries can disappoint, but the outcome is the outcome. Looking at it, I disagreed with the jury. I felt like if I'd have been on the jury, I'd have done a different thing in terms of their outcome with respect to Ward Churchill. But that was my looking at it as a citizen. I have great respect for Ward Churchill's lawyer, David Lane, a fantastic lawyer. And I think he probably did a really good job in this case. But to comment beyond that is wrong to me because I wasn't privy to discussions at the time that the governor was privy to, Bill Owens. I wasn't privy to discussions that Betsy Hoffman, chancellor at the time, what she was privy to. All that I knew, or no, she's the president, wasn't she? All that I knew from reading the newspaper and from listening to media accounts, and I formed an opinion. It was different than what the jury ultimately did, but the jury was privy to things that I certainly wasn't. And I'm not trying to be equivocal there, but that's really fair where jury verdicts are concerned, because at the end of the day, you can't fully account for everything the jury talked about in the jury room, nor all the things that they heard. The media just can't report about an 8-hour trial and an article that I had experience when I was a prosecutor. Where I gave a closing argument. Really, I thought it was the closing deal. Right? It was the thing, and it didn't wind up at all in the case. The newspaper reporter comes the next day and says, the defense attorney, his closing argument was what your story was about. I said, well, the editor got all of yours out because, quite frankly, it wasn't as exciting. And that's kind of editorial decision. So unless you sat to that trial or were privy to discussions with Churchill and the committee that investigated him, I have great respect for the committee that investigated him and recommended that he be sanctioned for the things that he'd done. Mimi Weston was a law professor of mine. She's a truth teller. And so I've got a lot of respect for those folks. They have a lot of credibility. The jury came to a different decision, and I don't know all the reasons it is. Yeah.
So you think?
Are you okay?
Is that okay? I can delete it if you want.
I don't really mind. I prefer not go on YouTube.
Okay.
Because I don't want it to be a distracting conversation.
Okay, yeah. Well, I just want to know how that's like but you still think that like what is true is still, what I'm saying, is still that's still there no matter what. Obviously, in such a messy situation, like obviously, so many toes are going to be stepped on, so many people, so much media, stuff like that. You still think that kind of that compass of what's true no matter what the situation, like in this situation, is still as relevant as ever?
Absolutely. I think you objectively always strive for the truth. Mark Twain used to say, this isn't about the word Churchill, Mark Twain used to say, from this clash of lies, truth will emerge. We used to have these cases where, not everybody can be telling the truth. Not telling the truth, you got to figure out who that is. That's part of a system that has human beings at the core of it. Talking about the prosecutor's responsibility and putting the truth out there. And not everything that is, where there's a difference in fact, not everything indicates somebody's trying to be dishonest. Oftentimes people just remember things differently. I remember this case, that was a tragic case. A police officer was shot and killed, and there was a couple who were in a home only 2 houses away from where the officer was shot. And it's funny, they both had military experience. They're both very, very proud of themselves, being able to remember the exact number of gunshots. They slept with their dog. The dog slept in between them. And both the man and the woman clearly remember that they rolled off the bed. the military training. When they did, they took the dog with them, right? And they were not, like this dog was either divided in half, right? And probably wasn't because the dog outlived the day, or they remembered it wrong. And they just remembered it differently. And you know, it was a great example of thinking about how criminal trials, that's why you have it. You know, that's why you have trials. Juries get to decide credibility questions. And just because two people remember something differently doesn't mean that one of the two of them are lying. They just had a very different recollection because in many respects it's not what they wanted to believe, right? That they were protected by their dog. Oh, who took the dog out with them? It didn't really matter. It didn't really matter to the outcome of the case, but it was just this thing that I always remember about two people who were absolutely trying to do all they could to be honest about their recollection, and they both recalled it very differently.
Thank you.
You bet.